and Bennett has started. So ladies and gents, quarterfinals is here. And whoa, so this is these guys' teams. Okay. 𝗬𝗵𝗶 stands out to me.
Yeah, that might be the one TEM that wasn't 50 SV. It's 49 on defense. That's all it is. Maybe the special attack is a little low, but otherwise, I mean, bringing a sparkly duck with a 𝗧 is pretty effective. There's actually some pretty good TEMs for this 𝗧𝗵𝗶 to fight as well. You know, if it is that toxic affinity, it's going to do some pretty good damage onto both 𝗂𝗀𝗆 and Kiinu. Although, you know, it takes a little bit back that way, but the 𝗧𝗵𝗶 could actually make a difference with 𝗧𝗏 as well.
Yeah, and it looks like Bennett really respecting that Lotto there, not trying to mess with any of that voodoo shenanigans that we honestly didn't get to see too much of. I thought we would. What are some of your thoughts, Rawrzyyy, on some voodoo traits?
You know, that's a difficult one to answer without giving too much away right now.
Okay.
We've experimented a little bit, and I'm petrified is the best way to explain of some of the possibilities.
I see. Yeah, that sounds super spicy. Yeah, I want to see it down the road in some future tournaments. And you know what? It looks like Bennett keeping things rather straightforward with some old school Temtems. The only new Temtem on his team is gonna be the 𝗂𝗀𝗄𝗎. So yeah, I think that raise has been really impactful, huh? Having the dynamic speed change, I think Bennett has been one of the few players bringing out the raise, because we haven't seen it too often, right? Did you see it in some other tamers?
I'm not sure who it was running raise. It might have even been Bennett earlier during one of the games he was on stream. I noticed quite a few TEMs that you don't normally see get very low on speed, all the way down at that -4, -5 range. So if Bennett is really going to make these swaps and play that game, you know, this Kiinu is gone, so it's not going to be the Protector buff and demoralize game that we used to see back in 𝗬𝗏 a little bit. But it definitely could make a difference here. There isn't too much priority damage on the side of 𝗂𝗀𝗄𝗎. You know, really, we would just be looking at that Nicho 𝗧 and Crystal Spikes on mix. You know, otherwise, there's not too much that 𝗂𝗀𝗄𝗎 has that'd be able to fight back against demoralized debuffs.
Yeah, well said. We'll see. I mean, just in terms of taking it down, you're so right. I mean, maybe the 𝗧𝗵𝗶, maybe the 𝗂𝗀𝗆, but we'll see. I mean, the speeds will start to add up, and we'll see more of the discrepancy favor Bennett as the game goes on. But there it goes, the 𝗬𝗵. Speaking of both of those TEMs, the 𝗬𝗵 𝗧𝗵𝗆 and the 𝗂𝗀𝗆 does get picked up. And there we go, the raise and the 𝗂𝗀𝗆 picked up on Bennett's team. And anything's off with the Yowlers, so let's get into it. And guys, 𝗂𝗀𝗄𝗎 looks to not be part of the organization just yet. Might be changing here after this tournament, but quarterfinal time, game number 1. Bennett versus 𝗂𝗀𝗄𝗎. Kiinu buff, of course, proccing. Let's see who's going to be taking that early tempo lead with the early victory in this best of 3 series.
Yeah, this is a big ask for 𝗂𝗀𝗄𝗎. It's saying 18 days experience playing this game, you know, give or take. That is not very much compared to the legend that is Ice Red Bennett. I mean, this guy has been around since the very beginning, as far as I know. He's been on top of his game for a very long time, and he's been back for a little while too. So it's not even like this guy has just returned to the game and is trying to figure out the new things, as well as what kind of meta were we playing 2 weeks ago. I wasn't here for it. I don't know. He's been here. He's been playing and successful this entire time. So it's really just been incorporating these new TEMs and new tactics like this dynamic speed change with Rise and this 𝗂𝗀𝗆, which is just an absolute monster.
Yeah, exactly right. You know, I feel like the new tamer, or how would I say? I feel like the 𝗂𝗀𝗄𝗎 being a new tamer might favor him, because some experienced tamers might have a harder time reading a newer player. And, you know, not really playing like a new tamer, but maybe making riskier plays or not more ideal plays. It might throw off some of the more experienced tamers like Bennett. We'll see if that applies here in this series. But, you know, Bennett likes to respect his opponents, maybe thinking they're going to do the most ideal play every time. And 𝗂𝗀𝗄𝗎 maybe throwing these guys off just a tad little bit. We will see if it happens. But just off the rip, the dynamic speed, or not dynamic speed, the raise does come in to lower these guys' speed.
minus speed, but Hypnosis still goes first. You know, 𝗂𝗶𝗴 did use Lifeless Up. There was no prio there, and 𝗧𝗲's not usually run too speedy since he's slowing everybody else down anyway. That's some pretty good damage on 𝗂𝗶𝗴, although Lifeless Sap means 𝗂𝗶𝗴 can just leave. This really isn't too big of an issue, and there are definitely some other Tems in Bennett's side that he's perfectly fine using. I think at this point, you know, maybe bring out 𝗂𝗀𝗽, and that's a pretty good pressure point for this mix and a lot of what's in the back as well.
Yeah, I believe we're hitting that turn 3 as well. So Fire Tornado should be online since 𝗧𝗲 didn't come in on that opener turn. So Fire Tornado plus whatever goals he can dish out probably will indeed bring the mix down. It is that +1 special defense, so maybe it's going to be able to hold on. I mean, Rawrzyyy, what does 𝗂𝗀𝗽 have to really hurt down this mix? I'm going to pull up 𝗂𝗀𝗽 here.
Well, in truth, 𝗂𝗀𝗽 just is kind of like what we used to play Yowler with. A lot of show-offs early on, and then just Oshi, Dashi, and Savage Suplex, except Stab is the other way around. So the Oshi is doing a little bit more damage. You know, on that mix, it does have the mental typing. It would be able to fight back pretty well with some of those mental attacks. But I think that the Oshi Dashi from, you know, potential +1 is going to be a lot more damaging to mix, especially if Rise is able to, you know, target down this Kiinu spot in the meantime. Even 𝗂𝗀𝗽 just going for something electric on that secondary spot means that Yowler would be the only one safe.
And it looks like the Kiinu will be coming into this 𝗂𝗶𝗶. Well, will become the 𝗂𝗶𝗶. The 𝗧𝗲 does swap out since it had to go to sleep for that turn. And the 2Vine swapping in. So 𝗂𝗶𝗴 staying here, not trying to leave so fast. So it looks like 𝗂𝗏𝗄𝗵 trying to read the 𝗂𝗀𝗽 swap there. And man, wait a second. The 𝗧𝗲 low. Oh, no. That's right. Yeah. Well, actually, no, that's wrong. Wait a second. Mix is at -1 speed and still outsped the 𝗂𝗶𝗴, but Bush. Either I spent it playing very no speed on 𝗂𝗶𝗴, or 𝗬𝗏 is playing very fast mix here. This is interesting.
Yeah, I mean, we saw it. Kiinu with Grease is typically a little bit faster, and we did see the Hypnosis go before Lifeless Sap previously. So 𝗬𝗏 could definitely be running a lot of speedy Tems. There hasn't been much attack damage sent Kira's way. It's really just been that plague on the Kiinu on turn 1. So we don't know for sure what the defense is like over on that side. We only know that the speed is still a little bit too much for Bennett to handle, but Raise and Demoralize, it handles that rather well. The energy manipulation is not going to do too much damage to Raise. It's not going to trap it in with that sweatbands instead of handcuffs, of course. And Feather Gatling onto 𝗂𝗏𝗏 does almost 50%. That is definitely a little bit more damage than I would have expected onto a 𝗂𝗏𝗏. It's typically some pretty physically pretty physically bulky on that side of 𝗂𝗏𝗏.
Yeah, definitely. And something to note, no toxic skin on the 𝗂𝗏𝗏𝗏, even though there's no chamomile on the 2Vine. So it's going to be rocking that mucus trait on this 𝗂𝗏𝗏. So already different than we're used to seeing. Maybe mucus was able to hold it, keep it a little healthier throughout the Swiss rounds. But 2Vine getting away with that Feather Gatling for no toxic ticks coming back at it. But with that, only doing a little bit under 50%, has to maybe do a little bit more. I'm thinking, does he want to double with 𝗧𝗲, or is that kind of just leaving 𝗧𝗲 in for a water jet? Maybe gonna switch it out. We'll see.
This Yowler swap in is pretty nice. That means Oshi Dashi is available for 2Vine next turn. The Fire Tornado along with that Feather Gatling. So it's potentially a little bit of a wasted Fire Tornadoes. Now it's going to be 3 more turns before 𝗧𝗲 can use that again. But it does guarantee the kill. It means that there won't be any more toxic ticks coming from any toxic ink. But this Kiinu though, Kiinu from 𝗬𝗏𝗏 is very nice. Going to start buffing up this Yowler just a little bit. It is chamomile Yowler, so it's got to stay in if it wants to keep these buffs. This is some 𝗬𝗏𝗏 meta coming back right now.
Yeah, and of course, I don't think this is going away anytime soon. Buffing up Yowler seems to always be such a great game plan, and that's what 𝗬𝗏𝗏 is doing here today. It is a chamomile Yowler, so if it does swap out, it will lose these buffs, but I believe Yowler being so healthy already, being on the board for just 1 turn, show off just this 1 turn perhaps, and then he's ready to game. So Oshi Dashi looking to do a lot on the 2Vine, looking to of course do a lot on the 𝗂𝗶𝗴, and just some good Savage Suplex pressure perhaps on the 𝗂𝗀𝗽 and the 𝗧𝗲. and taking a little damage there from the Kinu.
Yeah, I guess Bennett just wanting to sacrifice this 𝗃𝗏 and get while the getting is good. Kill this Kinu with a CPG. Maybe reading Owlr with the show off as well, knowing that 𝗏𝗏𝗃 was a little bit too clear and wasn't actually going to happen. But the minus attack means show off no more. The Owlr does still have the +1/+1 on defense, special defense, but it is now minus speed.
Yeah, exactly. And that's what Raze does. Such a strong support with that roar. Nullifying essentially the entire show off from that Owlr, so not too bad. But as you said, it's still a bulky boy, -1 speed. It's already the slowest Temtem on the board, most likely. But 𝗧𝗵𝗵 coming in, turn 1 Ice Shuriken, I believe is the only thing online. It could just Toxic Ink as well, but might as well get a little bit more damage with just the Ice Shuriken. We will see. 𝗃𝗏𝗺𝗏 ready to punish both of the Temtems on 𝗃𝗃𝗃𝗃's side, and the rage 𝗧𝗵𝗵. All right.
Oh man, I love this new rage mechanic so much. Getting rid of that one hold means using rage on turn 1 is a real strategy. It's a little bit unfortunate staring down this Raze who can just drop your attack over and over again. 𝗧𝗵𝗵 -2 defense and only +1 attack now. And of course, you know, Owlr using show off once more and not getting any benefit from it. I don't know. Owlr hasn't really been able to accomplish anything. And this is a fantastic board state for 𝗃𝗏𝗺 hard countering both sides.
Yeah, you know, I think he had, I mean, if he didn't show off there, he would have been at -1 attack. So, I mean, fair enough to him, but 𝗃𝗀𝗃's side looking to gun down that Raze became the 𝗃𝗀𝗃, so should take half damage from the melee typing. Energy manip, let's see, 100 all the way down to 65, so about that 35% damage, not too shabby. And he traps it in. I was wondering why it wasn't a beta burst, but wait a second, the Savage Suplex finally connecting on something and connecting quite well, bringing the 𝗃𝗃𝗃 down to 30%. So 𝗃𝗃𝗃 not looking too good to get off anything. Maybe just one final attack if it stays in. Owlr, actually, wait, only 𝗏𝗏𝗃's online.
Yeah, I think that this is still a decent turn for Bennett and 𝗃𝗃𝗃. I think that sacrificing this 𝗃𝗃𝗃 in order to kill 𝗧𝗵𝗵𝗃, and, you know, another E-Manip and, you know, any electric technique, whatever 𝗃𝗃𝗃 might be running, would be enough to bring 𝗧𝗵𝗵𝗃 down. With -2, 𝗃𝗃𝗃 might be able to do it on its own, to be completely honest, and then 𝗃𝗏𝗺𝗃s could just start to focus down Owlr a little bit more. There's always potential as well for Raze to swap back in. If 𝗧𝗵𝗵𝗃 is guaranteed to go away, you know, get Raze back online with this Fire Tornado, try to do a little bit of chip damage on the mix so that a tornado is enough to bring it down, and Bennett would be in a great spot. I mean, he already has a pretty massive Tem lead, despite a pretty good control lead going to the side of Kirasumi early on. That 𝗧𝗵𝗵𝗃 did just go first, though. That might be a little bit of a surprise. 𝗃𝗃𝗃 able to hang on, and the charged iron filings definitely enough to bring 𝗧𝗵𝗵𝗃 down. It does mean Comebacker is here for Owlr. If that targets 𝗃𝗃𝗃, it's dead anyway with 4%.
Goes with the show off instead, but you know what? Now with that diffuser trade, took away the chamomile. It's only for 3 turns, so I guess if it swaps back out after those 3 turns, chamomile will activate one more time. But I guess could get some toxic ticks if 𝗃𝗏𝗺 wants to Toxic Ink it. However, Beta Burst probably a little bit stronger, but this is such a good swap in for 𝗃𝗃𝗃. Now Crystal Spike onto both of these will be doing quite impactful, and you got the speed advantage. Wait a second, you're at -2 speed. Even though with the nerf, that's still, I believe, 34% down. Yeah, I believe that's the new speed mechanic.
Yeah, the Crystal Spikes targets 𝗃𝗏𝗺𝗃, meaning 𝗃𝗃𝗃 is allowed to Oshi-dashi this Owlr. It looks like he's overexerting himself to death, though, so any more attacks, it's really just hitting this 𝗃𝗏𝗺𝗃. But no, he doesn't actually OX himself away. The Oshi-dashi hits 𝗃𝗏𝗺, hardly hanging on, and his slight overexertion on Owlr.
Yeah, definitely. I thought this 𝗃𝗃𝗃 stayed in a bit longer than I expected. And now both of Bennett's Temtem, one of the 𝗃𝗏𝗺𝗃s is one of the strongest Tems to take down this Owlr. looking very weak. One more Crystal Spiker. Honestly, almost anything will take down this 𝗧𝗺𝗺, but you just want that 3 prio. Mix has enough stamina to do so, but the cage keeping everything in. Let's see what Bennett try to do. Oh, he's just ready to sacrifice these Temtems. So just energy manips the Yowler. Let's see what goals he did. As you said, he didn't overexert. Can he get off onto the Yowler? Oh, another charge iron filing. So big damage there. Not too big, but just strong enough to hurt that Yowler. One more energy manip looks to bring it down. And 𝗧𝗺𝗺 has enough stamina to do so. The question is, does the mix outspeed with the Crystal Spike? It's at -2 speed, so I'm willing to bet 𝗵𝗵. Oh, make that -3 speed. So yeah, 𝗵𝗵 has to get off here.
Yeah, I think that was definitely staying in and attacking, expecting some kind of cage, keep these Tems in, force someone to go down. And it was played out really well. This Rise coming back in again means that Mix can't outspeed anything here. So, you know, Yowler is pretty much guaranteed to go down. If it does attack this turn, he's going away. If he, well, he just got outsped anyway by a Fire Tornado. A little bit surprising to see another Fire Tornado used on a Tem that has so little HP remaining, when there's a Mix who would really like to, well, not like to take that Fire Tornado. Rather, Rise would like to give a Tornado over that way.
Yeah, and we saw that twice now from Bennett. He did that on the 𝗂𝗶𝗶, doing that on the Yowler. I think he just likes to solidify the kill. And they're in right away. These guys are quite fast.
Yeah, 𝗧𝗵𝗶 definitely impressed me in that first game. There was definitely some turns there that you don't expect to see from new players, really. You know, mechanics that almost seemed to be mastered, or at the very least very well understood, like keeping that Rise off this field. Don't let it get this Mix down one more speed until 𝗧𝗺𝗺𝗺 has been taken care of. That was a fantastic attempt from 𝗧𝗵𝗶. It was really just a, you know, Yowler took a little bit too much damage, maybe wasted a little bit too much time clicking show off, when instead it could have been attacking, could have been hibernating.
Yeah, that could have been a little difference maker. But of course, with those roars and King's Roar, maybe Yowler would have been hitting a bit lower without those show-offs. So we'll see. We would have to think back and see if it would have been. But I think Bennett just kind of had it in the bag, especially with that 𝗂𝗏 in the back. But 𝗬𝗏 will be starting off with the 𝗂𝗶𝗶. So Bennett may be thinking about the early 𝗂𝗏. We will see. So Kiinu 𝗂𝗏 it is. So buffing up the 𝗂𝗏, not too bad, as 𝗂𝗏 is pretty effective here. If it has a Noxious Bomb, even more into the 𝗧𝗵𝗺. But Nicho's side, he does have to be careful. But you know what? 𝗧𝗵𝗺 is kind of a interesting pick, because, you know, Kiinu could just stay in and beta burst it, right? I was thinking maybe the 𝗵𝗃 perhaps.
You know, really, it could be a beta burst and a Nox Bomb from 𝗂𝗏. It's not going to do as much damage without the stab, but it still is pretty good, and it's fairly common tech on these 2i evolutions these days. So that could potentially be a dead 𝗧𝗵𝗺 if this isn't perfect stats.
Yeah, or at the very least, make 𝗬𝗏 think about it for a slight second. Maybe retreating the 𝗧𝗵𝗺, and then maybe Ice Bennett just goes after the 𝗂𝗂𝗶𝗶 after all. So the mind game starting early on, but the Golzy getting picked up one more time. The Yowler Kiinu getting picked up, of course. So let's see, can 𝗬𝗏 make a comeback against Bennett? Bennett just one more game away, securing that semi-final spot. It is game number 2, and man, the 𝗧𝗵𝗺, even though a quite common Luma, still a cool Luma nonetheless.
Yeah, I think that at least in the pick bans, Bennett has kind of kept a lot of control. If he doubles into this 𝗧𝗵𝗺 spot, there isn't really anybody who's comfortable swapping in. Both 𝗵𝗃 and Yowler would prefer not to eat a beta burst, and Kiinu, I mean, I'm sorry, and Kiinu coming into either a Nox Bomb or a CPG would also be pretty detrimental for 𝗬𝗏 this early on. So if Bennett wanted to go out for blood, he certainly has that option.
And it looks like not trying to go with that beta burst tech, but trying to just get nice and early the Yowler in here. Chamomile maybe trying to read a Toxic Ink onto the Kiinu spot. We'll see if he calls it right, but does decide to buff up the 𝗂𝗶𝗶. And 𝗂𝗶𝗶 is a pretty good Temtem right here against Bennett, so buffing up, not a bad idea. Let's see if it was a Toxic Ink onto the Kiinu, and it was the Noxious Bomb. So Kiinu should be taking quite a good amount of damage, and it does, all the way down to 40%.
Yeah, that is definitely a speedy King. We kind of saw the proof of it last time, and even more so with how much damage it just took. If this was from a Volrend, this King would be much worse for wear. Definitely not able to swap out and back in again safely. You know, on vice versa too, Bennett swapping in the chamomile on his Yowler means that there is no toxic ticks from that Calabyss toxic ink. And we saw previously that this is a mucus rather than toxic skin. So if Bennett is able to play that game and avoid toxic ink ticks, Calabyss is a little bit neutered as well. He definitely has some ground to stand on with +1/+1. You know, if there's anything else that comes in here, +2, another King buff, maybe even a sacrifice later on, this Calabyss does stand a chance of fighting, I mean, at the very least, the King and Wolfie.
Yeah, we'll see if he keeps it a little bit more protected, but the Mushuk may be expecting another Nox Bomb. We will see, but CPG should be doing some good neutral damage to about that 30 to 25% onto the parry Mushuk, so not too shabby. But the show off does come out, so this Yowler is down to play. Let's see if he's gonna be popping off, but the Strangle, no, he will not be popping off just for this turn, keeping them steady. Having to rest at full stamina doesn't feel too good for Bennett. But the likewise goes the other way. Calabyss has to stay put, so it's only Mushuk versus 𝗬𝗏 at the very least. And Mushuk with those uppercuts will get the better of 𝗬𝗏. So what does Bennett want to do? It looks like he has a King in the back line. Buff up Yowler strat doesn't sound too bad here. We'll see if Bennett decides to do it.
Yeah, I definitely like where 𝗂𝗫𝗃𝗏's coming from here. Get the King back in, buff up this Mushuk a little bit, and now you're on equal footing with this 𝗬𝗏. That means any uppercuts are going to be doing a lot of damage. And another small play we got to talk about here, that was not a perfect jab towards the 𝗬𝗏. So this player who claims to be very new knows enough about 𝗬𝗏's determined trait not to click P-jab.
Yeah, very true. We can't say, you know, we've seen it a number of times where new players always forget about determined. So well done, 𝗂𝗫𝗃𝗏, remembering that. And yeah, uppercut, because of the +1 defense, not doing too much. And I actually didn't see it. The 𝗬𝗏 just overexert because he was quite low on stamina. I think he might have, right? I think FG might have overexerted him. So 𝗬𝗏 not able to stay. I mean, if he didn't overexert, he would have to overexert very significantly to do anything here. So 𝗬𝗏 most likely going to be retreating to one of these backline Tems. Perhaps the King, perhaps the 𝗂𝗀𝗄𝗃, just to start roughing things up, because the current board on 𝗂𝗫𝗃𝗏 doesn't really do too much damage. As you said, Mushuk more of a support with the P-jab uppercuts to try to do more damage, but instead, of course, buff up the Yowler game plan. Is this going to be another show off from Bennett, or is he going to go on the offensive here?
You know, this is kind of the same thing we saw with the Rise in game 1, except now it's King. Last time you banned one, now you banned the other. Oh, and a perfect jab. So reading some kind of a swap in. Now this 𝗬𝗏 is, or I'm sorry, this King is going to be in quite a lot of danger to any future Urushiels. A really nice Savage Suplex, though, bringing King down on 𝗂𝗫𝗃𝗏's side is the first knockout in game 2, all the way on turn 4.
Yeah, not too bad. King such a threat. The buff up potential was unreal. So getting rid of the King nice and early does favor Bennett and his King later on as the game goes. Because Bennett's King nice and healthy is just that +1 defense. So it has the grease, not locked in here. What can he swap out now that Calabyss is here? Urushiol synergy is online with that toxic to his side. So we'll see. I mean, chamomile is no longer there. So that Yowler, even though he has a +1/+1, Urushiol synergy alone, I believe, will take him all the way down. That's essentially 50% damage after everything is said and done. Maybe King could get a revitalize off, but if he stays in, Calabyss Noxious Bomb with the -1 defense might be enough to just bring him down with just that single attack alone. So Bennett, a couple decisions here.
Yeah, absolutely. This might just be forced into a double swap. 𝗂𝗀𝗃𝗏 does come in for King, but Yowler decides to stay. He eats the perfect jab. Hibernate. Okay, so he gets most of his HP back. He does freeze himself for a little bit, but it's not going to be the worst thing in the world. I guess the issue now for Bennett is he doesn't want to leave, or else he loses his plus attack. But if he stays in, he might take so much damage over the course of these next 2 turns where he can't attack that he's not able to accomplish anything. I guess if potential new synergy here, if 𝗂𝗬𝗇 is holding on to Taser, would that unfreeze, would that thaw out Polaris the Yowler?
Ooh, Rawrzyyy, I like where your head is at right now. Is that the little cheeky tech? I mean, you have to do at least a little damage onto the polar bear here. So I don't know. I mean, it's just a +1 attack. I mean, +1 attack is 50% additional damage. It has +1 special defense, but maybe you can just retreat. Let's see if 𝗂𝗬𝗇 will prefer to attack the opponents. But yeah, Yowler's just going to retreat and buff. You know, either you buff up the Yowler or you buff up the Golder. Looks like Ice Bennett wants to do both. So there it goes. Maybe going for a show off here. But the tenderness. Oh, on the Kinu. That is such a clutch swap out there.
Yeah, that worked out incredibly well for Bennett and pretty heart-wrenching in some ways for 𝗬𝗏𝗧𝗵𝗵, but no, doubling in with the Toxic Ink, even if it was just for the Toxic Ticks on Yowler, killing that Kinu on Bennett's side, saying, you know, you took mine away, now I'll take yours away, no more Kinu buffs, 𝗂𝗬𝗇, you've got to fight me like a man from this point on.
Yeah, that was right, and good job for 𝗬𝗏𝗧𝗵𝗵 covering both bases. I mean, if Yowler stayed in, he would have taken a good amount, but when the Kinu came in, going all the way down as it was at -1 defense, so that's 1 Temtem down a piece. It happens to be both the Kinus with the grease on deck, but 𝗬𝗏𝗺 coming in to try to punish both of these toxic Temtems. I mean, we saw the uppercut, but Tornado. Okay, is he gonna double the Machoke with the 𝗂𝗬𝗇 before Machoke can attack? Let's see. Okay, wait,
wastewater.
Yeah,
I absolutely love that technique. Machoke getting wastewater just opens up to so many more potential possibilities. I mean, this Machoke now playing around with so many other toxic Tems, it looks so scary. Even on this team where it only has 𝗬𝗏𝗏 as its friend, it's still able to accomplish a lot, and it definitely did in this game on its way down. And the strangle on 𝗬𝗏𝗺, that means there won't be any Noxious Bombs hitting 𝗧𝗵 or Feather Gatlings hitting 𝗬𝗏𝗏 this coming turn.
Yeah, that is right. So 𝗬𝗏𝗧𝗵𝗵 trying to take advantage of that, going with the Yowler, with the chamomile here. So maybe trying to buff it up as he can. And you know, that Iron Claw, or what is it called? The Iron, what's the AoE call that he just used? Something iron, right? And forgive me, guys, we will be better at this as we go. But yeah, the iron AoE
Charged
attack.
Iron Filings.
Yeah, charged iron filings, right? Quite the nice technique. It doesn't do the most damage, but just AoE alone enough to take that Machoke. Yowler for Yowler, 𝗧𝗲𝗺𝗃 doing some good neutral pressure, and geez, almost 50% on that Yowler alone as he tries to buff up. So I believe with the 𝗧𝗲𝗺 or Savage Suplex from this Yowler that is indeed online, I believe one more charge iron filings plus the Savage Suplex might be taking this Yowler all the way down, especially if 𝗬𝗏𝗧𝗵𝗵 gives him the comebacker trait. Let's see who has the speed arrow. Okay, 𝗬𝗏𝗧𝗵𝗵 has the speed arrow, so if both of these Yowlers are the 1SV type, 𝗬𝗏𝗧𝗵𝗵's Yowler will be going first, meaning Ice Bennett's Yowler potentially with the comebacker. So charge iron filings does get thrown out. Let's see who's getting attacked here.
Those iron filings definitely did more damage to Yowler than I was expecting this turn. Although, okay, yeah, 𝗬𝗏𝗧𝗵𝗵's Yowler is faster, which means 𝗂𝗬𝗇 is going to go down. That's no longer a counter to this 𝗬𝗏𝗃. But of course, you know, Savage Suplex for Savage Suplex, and only one Yowler can stand.
That is right. So good 1-for-1 trade. And 𝗬𝗏𝗧𝗵𝗵 loving the strangle. So not trying to go. Of course, Toxic Ink doesn't do too much. Just trying to keep that Yowler calmed down, so he doesn't pop off a little bit more with some more 𝗧𝗲𝗺𝗃s down the line. So has to rest for this turn. But so does the 𝗬𝗏𝗃. And with that Wolfie coming out, that is almost 𝗧𝗵's worst enemy. 𝗧𝗏𝗧𝗵 not just online. I will say perhaps 2 plagues will come out. And oh man, the rage, I'm not too sure. I mean, if 𝗧𝗏𝗧𝗵 is faster than the... Actually, wait a minute. The rage was faster than the plague. Wait a minute. That's a normal prio. I mean, we said it before. Ben is probably running 0 speed Wolfie.
Yeah, this is 0-speed𝗵𝗶 versus max speed 𝗧𝗵𝗶 if I've ever seen one. And really, Bennett doesn't have any good swaps. The only Tem in the back would be 𝗬𝗵, and he doesn't want to take a +2 𝗧𝗧𝗧. I mean, really, it's up in the air here. I think either way, 𝗬𝗵 might be a little bit better for the 𝗂𝗶𝗵 in the end, but no, 𝗧𝗲𝗪 onto 𝗂𝗨 doesn't go for that 𝗧𝗧𝗧 and loses 𝗧𝗵𝗵 in the process.
Yeah, maybe overthought it just a tad bit, expecting the 𝗬𝗵 to come in. But man, a 𝗧𝗧𝗧 at +2 attack probably goes 𝗵𝗶 all the way down. But with that said, 𝗵𝗶 probably a bit bulky on Bennett's side, so maybe not all the way down. But either way, it's looking like a GG. Our #1 seed, Bennett, will be taking down 𝗂𝗀𝗄𝗵. But hey, 𝗂𝗀𝗄𝗵, you did so great. Like, look, and yeah, Rawrzyyy, it looks like this might be game #3, as it's been a couple minutes since we started this. So I think this is it. One tamer moving forward. Is it 𝗂𝗀𝗆𝗃𝗊, 𝗧𝗵𝗵𝗆? I believe both of these tamers might have won potentially about the same time. Let me look back while we do these pick and bans.
Yeah, I've got to say, I absolutely love both of these teams. We've got 𝗬𝗵𝗵 on both sides, but 𝗂𝗀𝗆 just with a little bit more of the new spice. He's got the Chromion, he's got... now I gotta think of the names. He's got Hedgehine, he's got Ragnet. There's a lot more... there are more variables on 𝗂𝗀𝗆𝗆's side that I just think a lot of these players aren't accustomed to yet and don't know exactly what to expect. You know, we can assume what those 4 techniques will be, but we don't know for sure. Maybe somebody's thought of a synergy that we just haven't seen yet.
Yeah, I mean, as we said, it's only 2 to 3 days out from the initial patch, so no one truly knows. You know, that's the key thing about Temtem, knowing what to expect. So the ability to throw your opponent off and keep them guessing, it's a big deal in games like this. And hey, 𝗧𝗵𝗵 already coming out, so trying to punish this 𝗧𝗃 as it is effective. I'm trying to think though, does it have a turn 1 digital technique? I don't think it hits too hard. But if this Ragnet comes out, electric into 𝗧𝗃 doesn't feel too good. But the Grumper with the mud showers might be enough to punish it. And wait a second, a Momo. All right, so that is very interesting. So saying if you want to keep 𝗧𝗃, I'll try to punish it with 𝗬𝗵𝗵. If you swap out, Momo gets undermined the next turn.
So there are a couple of different options actually for this 𝗬𝗵𝗵 here. Whether it's physical or special, it can use a turn 1 electric attack. And if it is the expected trait, it will change its secondary typing and therefore have neutral damage taken from Grumper. So that could lead to something pretty spicy if you know, either Tesla Prison or Electro Punch is played. Otherwise, I think it has some pretty good options. It's got Frond Whip, it's got Crystal Bite. Those would both do quite a lot of damage. I think it even has Wastewater as a potential option of toxic damage onto this 𝗧𝗃. So 𝗬𝗵𝗵's a pretty fantastic counter to 𝗧𝗃.
Yeah, and with that said, I believe 𝗧𝗵𝗵𝗆 knows that, so probably wants to gun it down as fast as he can. But like you said, maybe a good old Thunder Strike might not be enough if you get that electric Tesla Prison online or that Electro Punch. We'll see. I know Electro Punch is 1 prio under the Sea Aura that does indeed go first, or most likely to go first. We have to see. This is looking spicy nonetheless, because 𝗧𝗵𝗵𝗆 has some pressure for both of these Tems. Let's see. And man, these guys click fast. So it is the 1 prio Electric Punch to take out the 𝗧𝗃. Rawrzyyy, that was so fast.
Oh man, that undersped Grumper.
Wow.
This might be a spicy 𝗬𝗵𝗵 that's been made slower from 𝗂𝗀𝗆𝗆. That just doesn't seem possible.
Yeah.
But that was a fantastic lead. There was some pretty good damage hit onto 𝗬𝗵𝗵 as well, but I mean, after taking down a Tem as scary as 𝗧𝗃 on turn 1, it's done its job. It doesn't really need to do anything else now.
Yeah, exactly right. And you know, did 𝗧𝗵𝗵𝗆 forget of the 1 prio? It did get changed. Electric Punch was not 1 prio until the recent patch. So maybe misstep right there. I'm not too sure. But man, 𝗧𝗃 flew so fast down. Very impressive. I don't think we've seen an HP fly off that fast ever, but well done. 𝗂𝗀𝗆𝗆 gets an early kill, which is a very impactful. But you know, Rawrzyyy, you touched it a little bit on earlier. I'm very, very excited to see what that Swag Lord. And Rawrzyyy, do you know how to say the name? I've been calling it 𝗂𝗶𝗰𝗸𝗶. How would you think it says?
It looks like it's a Chromion.
Chromion? Okay, I like that more. Chromion sounds a bit better. But alright, Undermine connecting on the near so 50%. Okay, there we go. Momo's still doing some damage.
Hey, I heard Momo got nerfed. It doesn't look like it, but I heard it.
And let's see the thunder, or not the thunder, the turbo attack. Is that enough to take it down? Not just yet, but I believe one more attack from either Temtem should be enough. But now that's a double narco hit online. Both won prior techniques, however, so these Temtems on 𝗶𝗶𝗆 side should be able to go first and take down the Nidoso before the double narco, but I'm pretty sure 𝗧𝗵𝗵𝗶 should be able to get off that. So Momo has to be wary of that. 64% remaining and minus that by 12.5 with that toxic tick. So I dare say maybe one narco hit enough to bring down Momo. So maybe it's time for one of the backline, but no, Momo just stays in and tries to bark this Noxo here.
That bark is actually very nice. As long as Crystal Bite is bringing this Yggdrasil down, now potentially if 𝗬𝗵𝗶 goes down, Swag Lord could come in and do a lot of damage with the Pigment Inverter trait. It's going to hit those toxic Tems with ×2 from a nature attack.
Yeah, and wait, the Swag Lord you're saying?
Yeah, I believe if this is the same one that we saw earlier, there haven't been too many Chromions in the tournament as far as I've seen today.
Yeah.
And I mean, the one that I saw earlier was definitely a Pigment Inverter nature, which means it is...
I see, yeah.
It is... Yeah, it's weak. Its attacks are resisted by water and earth. And then it is effective against other nature, toxic.
Yeah, and I think you're right. And geez, the bark into Undermine, even with the overexertion. Wait a second. Who said Momo got nerfed? That is a crazy one shot right there. 𝗧𝗵𝗵𝗶's Temtem's falling out so fast. But looks like the Chromium wearing the snares. So snaring the Machoke. I believe we didn't get to see what it was. Maybe just snaring the coat or perhaps something else off this Machoke. But we'll see. So you said if this is Pigment Inverter, if it throws out a nature attack, it'll do half damage to 𝗬𝗵𝗆, right? But double damage onto this Machoke?
I believe so, yes. And
okay,
it might even go an extra step further. It could be a double-edged sword. Well, let's see. Resin Trap onto this 𝗬𝗵𝗆, it was still ×2, so it is not Pigment Inverter in this instance. This one must be that Sinner typer where it just gets that extra damage if there's any other nature Tems on the field.
And let's see, it just got on the board, but as fast as it came, it's going down. So Chromium looking to be a little bit vulnerable there, goes down to the double up. So not too bad. 𝗧𝗵𝗵𝗆 looking to come back against Funky, taking out one more Tem. But now we got 𝗶𝗶𝗆's infamous Temtem on the board. 𝗬𝗵𝗆's trapped in. That is the easiest crystal spike to take down the 𝗬𝗵𝗆. He has to be a bit careful because of the uppercut on Machoke. So let's see if that's going to be coming out there.
Yeah, I mean, it's just death after death right now. This late into the game, the 𝗧𝗏𝗏𝗈 is not going to do too much thanks to the barrier trait. But a wastewater onto itself?
Yeah, I believe that is a concession for 𝗧𝗵𝗵𝗆. So man, what a dominating performance for 𝗶𝗶𝗆.